I'm Ivonne Hammoud, registered social worker and owner of New Moon Counseling, but out of the office, I'm a mom, wife, daughter, sister, and friend. Join me each week as I sit with a special guest to discuss everyday things that impact our mental health. We'll be chatting about everything from mental health and relationships to media and current events, as well as personal experiences and reflections, all in the hopes of normalizing our humanness and helping you see that you're not alone. This is Outside the Therapy Room. Hi everyone, welcome to Outside the Therapy Room. Today we are joined by Alex.
Hey everybody.
How's it going?
It's good.
That's good. Today we are talking about mental load for moms and women around the holiday season. And I know we hear it all the time. There's so many movies out about the mental load that parents or moms have to try to make the holidays as special as they can for their kids. So how you have a kiddo, she's older than my kiddos, but how has it been around the holiday season?
I mean, because my kiddo's like older, like she's 16 now, I want to say it gets easier. I don't feel like it's easier. I feel like it's a little harder, or maybe it just gets more expensive.
The older kids want the more expensive things.
She's like, I'm not going to ask for as much, but they're bigger ticket items, Mom. And I'm like, great. And like Christmas and the holidays and all those things are stressful already. Like we don't have a lot of kiddos in the family, just like my daughter and my niece, but they're very different people. So I kind of have to like run after people to be able to be ready and get the things that they want. And I'm like planning a trip this year, hopefully. So I was trying to like communicate with my child, like, hey, we're going on a trip together instead. So maybe this is a year that's different. And she's like, yeah, I'm just going to ask for like a few things. I'm like, okay. But you know, and yours is different, right? You have smaller kiddos. So it makes a difference, I think.
Yeah, I think it does. And you're talking about gifts, but there's so much more apart from gifts and you know, I'm sure that there are some guys who also feel this mental load, but for today, we're talking about moms and women, and it's not necessarily, and I'm saying women because it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a kiddo, but I feel like a lot of the time the caretaking duties are kind of put on women, and a lot of the like decorating, gift giving,
like the expectations, right?
Yeah, a lot of that is put on women. And so that is going to be our focus today here, and for us to share our own experience. But I think that there's so much that comes from that. So like decorating, getting things ready. I know my brothers call me all the time to ask me what to get my parents and my kids and each other. I'm like, why can't you guys just talk to each other?
Also same.
Yeah. But like, I feel like I'm the one that's called often, and my parents will call me too. So I'm kind of this middle piece, and it can be so much to try to be thinking about not only my kiddos around gifts, but also the rest of my family. And in my situation, it's a little bit different because my husband doesn't celebrate Christmas. So Santa doesn't come to our house, but Santa comes to my parents' house. So a lot of like the decorations and the festivities and all of that is something that my mom loves to take over and take on. But there's a lot of the mental load around, you know, supporting her, getting things done, getting like baking done for cookie exchanges, and getting the kids outfits, and getting family matching pajamas, and like all of these things that we end up expecting for the holidays. Not to mention gifts. It can just be so much. And we're also preparing for like things coming up at the end of the year. And so there's just a lot of things happening. And that's just within the family. Then there's like holiday parties and other festivities around that time that can also put all of these tasks that you have to do to be able to attend those things. So it can just get really heavy.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think my brain like immediately goes into like this, what can I do to make my child and like my niece have like the best day? And of course, like for children, they're like presents, but also trying to like, I'm actively trying to show my child that not everybody's Christmas looks the same, and we have to be able to figure out those things and trying to figure out ways to support other people. So I'm trying so often to change that like idea, but there is so much expectation around that in itself. And holding traditions that we grew up with.
And like making it special and memorable, and the like holiday magic, like that's just so much. And Elf on the Shelf, and like all of these added things, and not to mention social media. Like there's we just had an episode on social media a few weeks ago, and it can just, the comparisons, the people setting up their home and the decoration, like all of that doesn't only add like this comparison of like, oh no, maybe I should do that for my family, but there's also the financial piece of it. Like all of those decorations cost a lot of money, and if you're already kind of tight on money and you're focusing, or you have a budget for gifts, going above and creating this like Instagram worthy picture may not be realistic. But a lot of that mom like mental load on women also falls into mom guilt. We've experienced mom guilt a lot. It's not even around the holidays. I mean, it can just be, like just these expectations that we have for ourselves.
And I think like, you're right. That's such a huge part of why I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit more of a Grinch, because I do get so overwhelmed. For me, like my perfect holiday is being able to take some time off and watching Christmas movies, even though I hate to admit it. And
oh my God, I love Christmas movies and Christmas music.
But like sitting down and I just want to like relax, maybe have some hot chocolate, maybe like have cookies that I'm going to regret later because it's okay, and spend time with my family and just feel good. But it doesn't work out that way. I am like consistent that I am always driving back and forth to people's houses because there's so much guilt if I don't. And like last year, we switched all that over, and I was the person that had to push that. I was like, I'm placing boundaries. I'm not doing this. I can't drive Christmas morning to see my niece. I'm like, I want to give that time to my own child so she can enjoy those things. And
you also have a blended family, so there's a lot more driving and family.
There is. I have my partner's family with his, I think there's like three kiddos in the family, as well as like multiple brothers and sister-in-laws. I have my family that's a small family, but I also have my daughter's separated family with like her father's side. And I've come to a realization over the last like year to now that it is impossible for me to do all those things. But it feels horrible because I am that person in between that's potentially taking joy from situations for my daughter and all those other things. So it's heavy and it's hard, and then I'm miserable, and then I'm guilty because I'm miserable, right?
I know before we started recording, you were like, I don't really like the holidays. And I think it's because of that, right? It's also, we see it, Christmas movies, just expectation, the songs, like all about this magic. And when we are the ones driving that magic, trying to make everybody happy, making sure that we're able to go up to all of these different events, or have our kiddos do all of these events that there may be for them, like visiting Santa at the mall, and like going to see all of these relatives to bring that level of joy, that's exhausting. You're constantly in the car, you're focusing in on other people, and that's when our priorities can shift, where now we're prioritizing everybody else and not really filling our own cup. And then the guilt of like, then it just spirals. It's a huge spiral after that.
It is tough. And I have never really been somebody that has done like the more traditional, like visiting the mall to go get pictures with Santa. I didn't have a good experience as a kid, so that's something I never really did. Or all of our different workplaces at the time, because I came from healthcare, there's always like holiday Christmas parties, and always trying to set up all these days, trying to figure out times to always make everybody's days work. It's just a lot, and it's hard to be like this traditional view when sometimes that traditional view is not perfect for everybody. Right? Like it's tough. Like you talked about too, you don't have a traditional way of, I guess, celebrating Christmas that people would be maybe accustomed to, right? Like it's different for you, but you have to do very different things all the time to help your kids understand the difference in all these areas.
Yeah.
And that can be stressful.
It definitely can be, and we also talk to them about like being respectful of other people's cultures and all of those things, but then that also adds to that mental load of like having to have those conversations with kiddos. I think a lot of the time for me, the mental load also falls in like after Halloween, things are just so busy. Like my kiddo has a birthday party, like, or has a birthday in November, so then those weekends are usually booked up, and there's a lot of family birthday celebrations leading up to Christmas. And so by that point, I'm like done with not done with seeing family, but it's really overwhelming to have so many social events at that time. And I think the mental load for me lies in like, what do I need to bring? What can I do? How can I support and help out my mom? As my parents are getting older too, I do want to try to support them in some way. Like what is the plan? For my family, when I was growing up, we would always do the 24th. My mom would take us to church and we would go and do that. And then we would usually go to a family holiday that night. And it was fun. I remember it being a lot of fun. But as we got older and as our whole kind of group, that family got older, we stopped doing that holiday event because now all of the kids had their partners or had their relationships, and so they were going off, and so there wasn't that priority in it. So then we had to reshift, and that was really hard I think more so for my brothers, because I was like, I'm good. I loved those times together, but I'm also fine just kind of having a quieter day at my parents' house. But for my brothers, they really missed that connection, and so then that mental load came from like the planning. I'm a huge planner. I like planning. Maybe that's the Virgo in me, but I really like things to be organized. And so I like to plan and figure it out. And so now we've kind of, through like trial and error and shifting and doing different things as mine and my partner's family grew to our kiddos and all of that, like we've kind of had different traditions. And so now what has been happening the last few years is we go to my parents on Christmas Eve. We bake cookies or we do some form of decorating. We have dinner. And then we usually watch a movie and then everyone goes to bed. And then in the morning we open presents. But there's so much leading up to that day that really falls down on those to-do lists. And I think it's important for us to talk about why, like these beliefs that we have that kind of keep us trapped in that mental load. For me, I have a really hard time letting go of control. I like things to be done a certain way. And so when I'm trying to delegate a task to my partner or my brothers or my parents, whoever it can be, I'm very rigid in how I want it to be done. And so I think that meant like that belief that I have is that I can do things better than other people, or that I'm really good at multitasking. And so I kind of continue doing this mental load. But then I end up getting frustrated or I'm short with the people around me, and they're all like, "Hi, Yvonne, we've been trying to help." But I kind of can't see that because I really want to be the one to take that on. Do you experience that with like mental load?
I think like when you were saying it, I'm thinking about the fact that my partner is the one that has that control piece. And I mean, whatever makes him that way is whatever that is. But for me, I find that like my people pleasing is so ridiculous over the holidays because it kind of sits with like, there's this idea that my partner has grown up with in the traditions that he has been used to in his family. And then there's mine that I grew up with, and they're not necessarily different, but they are more overwhelming for me because I grew up in a small, close-knit family when he had a bigger family, and his mom like loved Christmas. So it was like the second everything could go up, it was. And now that his mom is gone, he's not feeling those same things. So now I have this like urge to please, to make sure everybody knows that like, it's okay. I got it. I can make sure that tradition is still there, which feels crazy for me because I am so beyond that piece where I'm like, I don't need all of those things. But now I'm like sitting today. I'm like, oh my God, I haven't got the stuff up that I need to get up because it's been so busy recently. But I would generally have stuff up already, waiting, and do all these things that I need to do because I'm always trying to meet that need and like that people pleasing part of me that is like, I need everybody else to feel good about it, even if I'm not feeling great about it.
Yeah.
Which gets overwhelming, right? That's heavy.
Why do you think we're the ones to hold that responsibility, to kind of be the ones to, I don't know, keep traditions alive or to put in that people pleasing to try to create this positive experience for the people around us?
You know, it's a good question. And I don't know if I have like the exact answer for it, but I do think that traditions generally were shown where women were the ones that were going to bring joy and all those things into the home because in that time, the woman was the person that was taking care of the home and doing all these things. Mm-hmm. It's kind of just like gone forward that way. And I think over generations when we're seeing more women like work and do all these things and it has shifted, but it's like our mindset hasn't shifted in it, that we're still like, no, we have to take on this role. This is important. I want my kids to see this and I can provide that.
Yeah.
And like control piece.
Yes.
Right? That you talked about is like making sure you have control over the fact that your kids are seeing something perfect. Right? And like you said, like social media piece, all these things.
Yeah.
How do we not meet that need consistently if we're seeing it all the time? It's always going to base in guilt. It's always going to base in like, that's the expectation and like quotations around that because of course that's not the expectation, but it's what we're feeding ourselves.
Yeah.
So now we have to meet it.
Yeah. Or it's been, like traditionally the custom. So then that becomes the expectation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which makes it really, it makes it hard. I was listening to the Birds Papaya podcast this morning and she talked about never being asked, always being told your partner is so involved or when she's out and about on her own, like who's babysitting your kids, all of these things to kind of bring on that mom guilt. But honestly, I think around the holidays, women are often the ones that are being asked that question. Like, what are you doing to, make this a magical occasion for your kids? And I don't think males or, husbands, dads are being asked the same question. Yeah. And that's kind of like a societal view that women are the ones that are supposed to be creating this magic or that are supposed to be the ones doing all of the things for everybody to make sure that the holidays are a positive event. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, like you said in the beginning too, of course, like dads, partners, like any other human that we're in a relationship with can absolutely still be feeling these things, can still be feeling overwhelmed, still have expectations. Because of course, if it's separate homes and the dad has to create that magic, or maybe the mom has to create that magic and kids are seeing it differently, great. But we do know that women's brains hold things differently, right? Like that's an understanding that we have, that we are able to think differently. And sometimes I think the expectation and like the load that we're holding sits very differently with women because we are trying to do a million things at once. Even when we tell you we cannot. Yeah. Right? It's like that emotional labor. Yeah, right? Like showing up in all aspects and thinking about, and I always say this to my partner, because he's like, I don't understand. And I'm like, of course you don't. It's okay. Yeah. But like, I'm thinking of 18 different things leading up to what needs to be done. Yeah. You're kind of just like, it needs to be done. Let's do it. And I wish, oh my gosh, I'm like so jealous. Yeah. Sometimes that I'm like, I wish I could just look at it and be like, that's what we're doing. Yeah, the other day I was doing the same thing to my partner. I'm like, okay, so we need to get up at this time and then the kids need to eat. And then what should I make for dinner? I need to get this. Yeah. The cat needs more litter. And I'm listing all these things. He goes, whoa, like you're overwhelming me. I'm like, this is my brain. This is my brain all the time. And then I was like, if you could take something on of the list that I just gave, that would really help me. And so he did. He was able to go and grab whatever the thing was that we needed to grab. But it becomes like this, we're holding the list of to-do in our heads this whole time. And that like in itself is a mental load, not to mention the emotional labor not to mention all of the other things that we need to do for ourselves, like basic self-care, feeding, prepping, the regular day-to-day things that we have to do. When all of that around the holidays, it's all scrambled together in our brain, that it can lead to burnout.
Yeah.
We can get sick. Our body has is connected to our emotion, and our immune system can be lowered when we are feeling this level of stress. And I'm so sorry I cut you off.
I can't even remember that you cut me off, so it's okay. It happens, and then we just go.
I got too excited.
It's okay. I think it's so important to pay attention to that piece of like our immune system and everything. And like, there's a reason we're so exhausted over the holidays, but there's a reason we're so exhausted after the holidays. Because our body can only hold so much.
Yeah.
And we're stressing ourselves out so unbelievably that, like, when you're sitting here talking about this idea of this list, and it's like, yeah, there's a list there, and it's so important for us. So for our partners, it might be, okay, yeah, we have to, wrap all the presents. We have to cook all the meals. We have to think about what we have to bring. For us, it's like, oh my gosh, do I use all the same wrapping paper? What if I make this and this person doesn't like it? Or is there allergy? Like, there's a different level of worry because we've built that expectation that's so high that if one thing falters it, we failed.
Yes.
And that failure piece and that fear of being looked at in a way that, oh my gosh, you didn't provide what we were looking for, or you destroyed this tradition that we've set out for each other, is a horrible place to be. And it's like, there's such a deep understanding of that it's there, but it's really hard to get away from that.
And the anxiety that causes.
Yeah.
Ugh. I felt that, like,
thinking about it, right?
and that just, honestly, as you were saying that, I was like, ooh, yes. I'm glad that you named it, because that is such a heavy feeling. And I'm like holding my chest as you said that, because that's where the heaviness lies. And yes, the failure piece.
Yeah. And I live within it very heavily when it surrounds like the grief. We have a lot of grief around the holidays. Yeah. And it's not because it was at a holiday time. It's just because so much magic was created by one person. Yeah. And it's impossible to actually match. But there's so much anxiety and there's so much fear that there's a potential that something's going to go wrong, and that maybe I'm the person that's going to make somebody feel like they don't feel the same. And whether you're your partner or your family or whatever, believe that you're doing something wrong. It takes like one little thing to make it horrible. Yeah. And I mean, right now we're currently dealing with some illness in the family as well. So it's like trying to hold that space for my daughter as well, to know that potentially this is going to be her last Christmas with a grandparent. Yeah, that's really hard. Yeah, and it's such a big piece because I'm struggling with this like set of boundaries that I'm like, I'm not driving all over the place to destroy my magic that I'm trying to create for myself to enjoy the holidays. But I also can't take that away from the family that might not be paying attention to boundaries as much. But it's also okay to compromise. Like, I'm very much compromising that area because I want her to be able to have those experiences. But it's hard to find the balance, right?
And the expectation, because I can only imagine the expectation that you're putting on that situation for your daughter to have the best time, or for this relative to have the best last Christmas. Like, and that's like one expectation, and I'm so sorry, and that's very heavy for your family. Yeah. But then there's the other expectation of like Christmas morning. Yeah. Going up to the tree and sitting and like I have a very visual mind. So it's like a mini movie that plays in my head, and I'm like, oh my God, my son's gonna react this way and we're gonna do things this way. And, I can imagine like a movie. Not great. Not great. But like it's this expectation. And even just around any kind of event, my husband always reminds me, like, Ivonne, check in on your expectations. Things might not go the way that you want. I think we talked a little bit about that when we were talking about imposter syndrome.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Ages ago, it feels like. Yeah. In the summer. But yeah, like he kind of has to ground me, because I can get really bummed if things don't go the way that I had expected or hoped that they would go. Yeah. And so that has definitely been something that I've been working on over the years, because I do want the kids to have a good, magical Christmas. And sometimes it won't go that way. And that's okay. It's still a great Christmas. And when I look back on Christmases in the past, it's always positive. Our brain has a great way of like highlighting some of the good things that happen. And if there were minor bad things that happen, we have like a habit of erasing some of those minor bad things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can like, we can put this pressure on ourselves or this expectation that it's going to go one way. And then when it starts not to go that way, then that's when those feelings of being a failure, those feelings of anxiety, of things not going as perfect as you expected, and the grief of it not going the way that you had hoped, all compiling on afterwards. So have realistic expectations.
Yeah. I was going to add a piece too, because I was thinking about it when you were talking about kind of like creating these expectations and being prepared for them to like not land the way you're hoping. And the other thing I want to also remind people is that when we're in situations like that where we're feeling so overwhelmed and so much expectation and our anxiety is like at a point where we're not even understanding how to manage it. For me, at least, I know that I am not perfect in those moments because I am so heightened in the holidays because it does not feel always great for me. So I do find that my poor partner generally has to be the person that is dealing with some of those areas that aren't perfect. And we have different ideas because, again, we have older children. It does change, like the 6 a.m. wake ups and knocking on the doors to come down. I have a child that very much still wakes up at 6 a.m. And then we have 2 older boys that are like, I want to sleep until noon. Right? So there's this change in what the expectations are on both sides, which sometimes causes conflict.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to work in that area to build compromise so it's still enjoyable for everybody.
Yeah.
Because, and we've tried both sides. I've tried to do like the early morning for my daughter. And the older boys are miserable. They're tired. Of course they are.
Why are we up so early?
Yeah. And then we do it the other way where we're like, okay, we're going to push back a little bit. We're not going to be so early. You guys are older. It's okay. And my daughter is like, oh my gosh, I just want to open things. I'm so excited. And I'm like, you don't want to take away the joy from either one of them. But it's really hard sometimes. And sometimes you have to be able to make sure that whatever you're actually trying to meet is paying attention to everybody, but also is attainable.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's just not, and it's not going to be perfect. And maybe one opens up things early and the other ones don't.
It's like flexibility in a plan, right? And not having plans be so rigid that, you know, if everyone's up at 6 o'clock, there may be some that are sleeping in. Maybe you can wait, like, but being flexible and like just taking it moment by moment. You mentioned conflict, and a lot of conflict can happen between partners when there is this heightened level of mental load for one of them. And that can be like, I don't feel seen. You're not understanding. I'm telling you I need help, but you're not doing it in the time or in the way I want it to be done. Yeah. And there can be a lot of that conflict that happens between partners or between family members. Like,
and defensiveness as well, because we don't always communicate those things well.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But there can be a lot of feelings of like, I'm not being seen by my partner. They don't see this invisible list of things that I have to do. I'm not being supported in the same way. I'm holding a lot more of the like sibling support, right? Like I'm the head sibling, right? Like I'm the one that is or like the one that's holding a lot of these responsibilities, and I'm trying to delegate, but it's not working. So conflict between my siblings like could happen, right? So there's a lot of conflict, and because of the pressure, the overwhelm, like going to the mall.
I do not.
I'm going on a tangent, but like there's so much sensory overwhelm that happens when I go to the, like, you walk by some stores and the smell of like perfume, I don't know why, but it's so, like I can't go to stores that sell lotion or candles. There's just too many smells and it's overwhelming.
Yeah, it's triggers for me.
Or it's really teeny or like really busy. Yeah. Like I'm thinking about Bath and Body Works.
Oh, goodness.
It's I love the store.
But
crazy. It's crazy. And like, I can't even walk to the back because there's too many people. And then I'm like, there's too many people. But the mall, like, I'm in my tangent, but it can be so sensory filled.
It's like overload, yeah.
Yeah, that then even just going like a quote unquote simple trip to the store ends up being so overwhelming for us, having to stand in line. We're wearing our jackets, but it's hot at the mall. There's so many people. Now we're warm and we're sweating and we feel claustrophobic because there's so many people there. And the smells and the sights and like just it's too much.
Yeah.
And I agree. I don't know how I got to this tangent, but I think a lot of the conflict then happens in those moments. We're already feeling so heightened in all of these areas. Responsibility, pressure, like fear of like not giving our family the best Christmas and all of that all of this pressure can then lead to us resenting our partner, not feeling seen by our partner, not feeling supported or appreciated for all of the things that we are doing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I write off the mall from November till January.
Thank God for online shopping.
I know, and I do so much on Amazon now. I do so much on online. My partner is very against gift cards. He's very much like, no, I want it to be personal, and I love that.
Yeah,
because he loves the holidays so much. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to be like, you know what? I'm giving a gift card. I'm giving money as much as it might not be as personal. I'm learning to make peace with the idea that if somebody's asking for that, then that's what they need. Yeah. And I'm okay with that. And I try to make sure that my partner always has something personal instead. But the mall the tangent is needed because it was the worst experience of my life when I started going to the mall and trying to get everything done, let alone bring your kids.
Oh my goodness. No.
So yeah, I agree. I think it's such a big piece and it's so easy when we're heightened to start attacking every other people in our life. And we don't have to be perfect. That's not needed. But I think we do have to pay a little bit more attention to, I guess, what we're able to actually manage and sit with in our own body and our own lives before we like throw it at other people.
It's the awareness of it too. I think we really need to pay attention to how we are feeling in those moments and be able to pause so that we are not responding so defensively to the people around us. And for me, a big thing has been letting go of that control. Right? Like
that's easy, right?
It's so easy.
Of course it is.
Oh my God. No.
It's so much sarcasm
here. It's freaking hard. It's really, really difficult. And I've recognized some things that are maybe important to me, but not as important for me to have in a particular way that feels comfortable for me to give to my partner. So grocery list, shopping list, here you go, do it. If you bring the wrong potato, it's fine, we'll make it work. Yeah. Whereas like picking an outfit for my kids is something that I'm going to do. So again, it's being able to, for me, if I am feeling really overwhelmed with the mental load that I have, it's how can I delegate these tasks in a way that I'm going to still feel okay and comfortable with, and trusting the person and knowing that they're going to be able to get that job done. Yeah. So I might not trust my brothers with picking an outfit for my kids because they don't know, they're not involved. So that's obviously not going to be a realistic task for me to pass on to them. Yeah. But I can request that they do other things. Yeah. And that helps me lighten my load a little bit. And also that expectation I'm putting on myself. Because sometimes, again, as a mom, I'm like, I want to make this be warm and fuzzy and cozy and magical for everybody. And that's not my responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a hard thing to sit with. It is.
Yeah. What are some things that you do to try to support yourself when you're feeling this overwhelm from the mental load around the holidays?
I mean, I'm a reader, so I do find that when I do have time off, I generally try to pick up a book to try and at least stop myself from overthinking about all the things. I will say planning early. Like I'm also a planner when it comes to those things. And I try to shop early. I try to get it done so that the only thing I actually have to work on is any additional stuff that I want to add to the stockings or, we have a tradition that I usually give like pajamas and hot chocolate the night before. Yeah, so doing things like that, I think it helps me feel a little bit more like on track. The other thing I will say is I have a partner that's very like last second with things. He's like, it's gonna be fine. And I'm like, oh yeah. So I very often get the response of like a week before, or that's being nice, not a week before, like 2 days before. By the way, we're supposed to be bringing the turkey this year. And I'm like,
oh my God.
No, we're not.
Full turkey.
We're not. So I've had conversations with my partner to say, I understand that you might not know all the answers, but I am asking you to ask the questions so you have those answers. Because I think expecting our partners to just know what we need is never going to work. So now it's like, okay, I know that we go to his dad's for Christmas, and every time I'm like, what are we bringing this year? I need to know at least a week in advance. If you do not want to text your dad, I will text your dad. Just let me know. So I have a very clear plan of what I know has been an issue for me in the past. And instead of letting it happen again, I address it.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't have to add that additional stress. And I mean, I'm trying very hard because holidays are not a thing for me. But I have noticed over the years that the earlier I am putting Christmas things up, I get a little bit more festive. I'm trying to be a little bit more relaxing and stuff in those areas. And I'm turning it into something that's fun. I'm able to do something and saying, okay, I've done this part. Now you get to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm adding little things every year as they get older that they get to add in and choose. So that helps me.
Yeah. And I like the, which one is going to be a heavier stress for me.
Yeah.
Being told that we have to bring the turkey 2 days before, or taking on that task of communicating with my partner and offering to be the one to communicate with the person that we're going, that we're visiting, right? Yeah. So it is an added mental load, but it's still going to be some form of a relief after, which is also important to remember.
Sometimes we can't get rid of those stressful moments. We just have to figure out ways to, I guess, work with the stressful moments a little bit better.
Yeah, and I think it's also important for us to check in on ourselves and understand what our capacity is at. And sometimes doubling up on tasks. Like, I actually really enjoy watching a Christmas movie and wrapping presents. Right? Like, that is my thing. So wrapping presents is fun for me, and it's something that I enjoy. And then adding like the self-care piece of like, I'm just going to watch like this cozy, warm, holiday movie that I really enjoy while I do this. It is a form of self-care for me during the holidays. And so sometimes doubling up on tasks that feel good can be helpful. But I think, I was going to say when you experience, but as you're experiencing this mental load, like, please be checking in on yourself. Yeah. We're kind of in the holiday season. We're in the brunt of it all. But if you have an opportunity to kind of reflect on what your to-do list is for that weekend. Try to see if there are some tasks that you're able to delegate to someone. Try to see if some of those tasks are maybe more needing to be done on a timely manner. And so you're able to have a realistic expectation of what you can get done that week, and ask for help. It's okay to ask for help, but then the other piece of that is actually trusting that person to help. I'm guilty of telling my husband to take the garbage out. And then when he doesn't do it that instant, I'm like, oh, fine, I'll do it. And then I end up doing it. And I'm like, you never do the garbage. And he's like, well, you literally gave me 1 second to do the garbage. I said I'd do it. I'll do it on my way up to bed or whatever. Yeah. So it's being able to also trust the person that they're going to be able to complete the task.
That's a huge thing too. I'm just going to jump in fast.
Yeah.
And then I'll give it back to you, because I did that last year. I was like, you know what? I'm going to let you wrap the presents. I'm going to tell you, it's not something that you would have loved. My living room was filled with bags. He just threw everything in bags and put tissue paper. And I was like, ooh, that's not what I was expecting. But you figured it out. I didn't love it because, of course, I want it to be wrapped. But I let it go. I was like, you know what? Yeah. I gave him a little bit of flack for it. And then he's like, well, you told me to do it. I'm like, no, you're right. You're actually right. I told you to do it. If there's a million bags, they're wrapped. It's okay. They can't see it. Might not be my perfect, but
But also, if it's really important, sometimes we don't think to be direct.
Yeah.
In our heads, we're like,
Yeah.
wrap the gifts, wrap them with like wrapping paper, make them look pretty.
Yeah.
But when someone else hears wrap them, it's like, oh, okay, I just need to package them and get them ready to be given to the person. So it's also important, if we are expecting something or we want something done a specific way, that we're communicating that.
Yeah.
Can you wrap the presents with the wrapping paper? This is something that's really important to me, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that that's definitely valid. But at the same time, he did it.
You did it. And I was like, I mean, good for you. You're folding those bags after.
Right. So just, you know, be gentle with yourself as we go into the Christmas week, and, you know, communicate when you can. Do whatever you can to take care of yourself in these moments.
Yeah.
Do the fun thing, whatever that fun thing may be for you. Singing carols in the car, driving by and seeing all of the Christmas lights outside. Like, you know, sitting and doing nothing and watching like a cheesy Christmas movie, whatever it is. I hope that you're taking that time to take care of yourself and communicating, checking in on your emotions, being able to acknowledge your emotions earlier on, so that we're not so much into our frustration and holding that emotion for such a long time that we end up reacting to the people around us. So as we always say, like, awareness, communication, broken records, but hopefully that helps lighten a little bit of this holiday season, and expectations. That's what I'm going to be doing, checking in on my expectations.
Yeah, and I think that people just need to actually find the holiday magic and joy that they want, and it might be messy. It's not going to be perfect, but I think we can find the magic in exactly what's happening. Yeah. Yeah.
And on another hand, if you can't find it, that's okay too.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't have to be magical.
It's a couple of days. It doesn't have to be magical.
No.
You can get through it and be happy you survived it. But yeah, whatever it is that you're needing, hopefully you're able to give that to yourself.
I just hope everybody has a great Christmas, no matter what it looks like for you. And we'll see you again in the new year.
Yes, we will see you soon. And follow us on Outside the Therapy Room Pod on Instagram and TikTok. And we hope you have a happy holiday. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Outside the Therapy Room. This podcast is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. If you reside in Ontario and are interested in working with one of our therapists, please visit our website in the show notes. If you reside outside of Ontario, a quick Google search or search through Psychology Today will help you find a therapist near you.